Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you guys very much. There's one addition that I would like to add to that. I do have a 4-month-old son now by the name of Xander Lewis Frey, so we need to update that in our bio. Boy, is it exciting, let me tell you. Both Becky and I are welcoming young children into the world, so anyway. Thank you very much to Tom and Ryan for the introduction and for the availability to come speak with you guys and gals. I want to thank you guys for the visitors and the attendance. I will mention a couple things. We have on each of the tables, we have a one-pager for you to kind of read, if you will. We didn't want to put all of them on the table, so on the back there is some additional ones that you can grab on your way out, some business cards, and a sign-up sheet there that you can include your information if you'd like to be included in some of our monthly newsletters. As Ryan had mentioned and Tom, there is a large impact and sustainability cause to this company. So in our newsletter that we put out to all of our supporters, it's just general information based around what the industry is trending, what Ocean Thermal Energy Corporation is doing, and just additional information and resources for some folks. So again, that information is in the back. What I'd like to do here from the start is we'll talk here for 15 or so minutes and then open it up to some questions for you. I'll start with a little bit about our history with Ocean Thermal Energy Corporation, because as I go around and speak with folks, the one glaring question is, why in the world are you located in Lancaster, Pennsylvania? And how did you end up here? And it really is a special story and a neat venture that we're embarking on. So a bit about our history. Our predecessor company was based out of Hawaii. Formed in the late 90s. Our head chief science engineer, Dr. Steve Oney, managed the company and had performed much of the research for ocean thermal energy conversion, which is the technology at the OTEC plant that exists in Hawaii on the Big Island. Much of the research in the United States has been done in the Big Island at the Natural Energy Laboratory of Hawaii. In 2009, 2010, our chief executive and chairman of the board, Jeremy Feekins, our chief financial advisor, Ed Baer, and a third partner who has since passed, Mr. Jim Greenberg, the three of these gentlemen created a venture fund with the intention in 2009 to invest in sustainable impact causes. They didn't want to invest in a company that built widgets, nothing wrong with widgets. However, they just wanted to better the planet, to do well by doing good. The original intention back in 2009 was to create this venture fund and invest in multiple companies. However, when they found our predecessor company, OC's International, out in Hawaii, there was such an interest in the commercial viability of the two forms of technology and to take our trade secrets that OC's had and develop this business, ultimately to bring affordable energy and clean potable water to residents of the world that are desperately in need. From 2010, they made their initial investments. They originally instantly brought the company from Hawaii back to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and our engineers are actually out of the DC area, so that was a bit of a sell to bring these folks back from Hawaii. Tough life they lived out there. The one complaint Jeremy had was they went to work in sandals and shorts, and he didn't like that. So since 2010 to today, we've been investing in the company. We took the company public May of last year, 2017, so we've been public for almost a year now on the OTC markets, and our ticker is CPWR if you do have interest in looking at that. So a bit about our history. Again, I like to touch on that because our target market is not necessarily anything that has to do with Lancaster or Pennsylvania or a landlocked area that we exist. So who is Ocean Thermal? Just to go some acronyms, OTE stands for Ocean Thermal Energy Corporation. OTEC, if you hear me say that, that's the technology, Ocean Thermal Energy Conversion. Sometimes can get confusing. OTE, we are an environmentally focused project developer. Essentially, we are project managers. We design, build, own, and operate OTEC and Seawater Air Conditioning plants. Our technologies, essentially what they do is we provide base-loaded 24/7, 365 energy harnessed from the energy that's stored in the ocean to create electricity, air conditioning, and as a byproduct of both technologies, we create potable water. A desalination plant can be attached to these and generate massive amounts of clean desalinated water. The immediate objective of the company, as I mentioned, we've been investing in the technology, in our team, in our engineers. The immediate objective of the company at this point is to design and develop the world's first OTEC plant, ocean thermal energy conversion. As I mentioned, there is a pilot plant that exists in Hawaii. We are working with, in our top project that we'll get to here in a bit, the USVI on the island of St. Croix, to bring the first OTEC plant to a commercial, scalable, viable location. So that's the immediate objective. We have a project pipeline at this time of 9 projects. And along with our OTEC, at the same time, we do look to produce seawater air conditioning plants. There are multiple examples of seawater air conditioning, or the engineers call it Sea District Cooling. And the city of Toronto, for example, the city of Toronto is cooled off of Lake District Cooling. Cornell University has a Lake District Cooling plant that has been a sustainable air conditioning resource for the university there. There are multiple examples of these seawater air conditioning plants, and again, as part of our technology and the expertise of our executives as well as our engineers, we simultaneously work with both of these projects. So when we looked at building this business, what is the problem that we're looking to solve? And essentially, people living in tropical and subtropical regions of the world will never prosper as long as they are tethered to imported, high-cost fossil fuels and a lack of resource or a lack of access to clean drinking water. That is the fundamental objective and goal from our executive team. Most of our original investors are impact investors and just have a sustainable cause to provide these emerging markets with access to affordable energy and, again, access to clean drinking water. This has been very relevant as, you know, the fall and the winter we saw last year, all the hurricane devastation in the Caribbean. You see Puerto Rico and the devastation that they're had, and they're still in emergency mode trying to get access to clean water to their residents. So there's a tremendous need in our target market for, again, both the affordable and sustainable energy, as well as the clean potable water. So what is the solution? We design and develop OTEC renewable energy systems to produce base load resource energy. It is not an intermittent source. Solar and wind are certainly relative and relevant technologies for our market. However, there is an intermittency with that technology. If the sun's not beating down on the solar panels, if the wind isn't blowing, this is an intermittent source whereby many of these locations already have brownouts and blackouts. So a unique feature of OTEC is it is base load. As long as the sun is beating down somewhere in the ocean, we can take the draw from the temperature differential between the warm surface water and the cold deep ocean water, we'll go into the technology in a minute, to generate the electricity. So again, the solution that we solve, that we're looking to solve for these emerging markets, is again providing that energy and water. So let's talk a little bit about the need for water. Many of our customers, that is a driving factor. The energy, the air conditioning is certainly an interest to them. Where is oil going to be in 5 years, 15 years, 20 years? How are they going to provide a cost-efficient energy source? Here in the United States, we pay 8, 9, 10 cents a kilowatt. Many of our customers in the Caribbean, Southeast Asia, are paying 25 to 45 cents a kilowatt. So that's of interest, but a driving factor, as we mentioned, is what this technology does to create desalinated water. We put out a study and an article on our website 2 days ago, I believe, that kind of referenced much of the technology. And the World Health Organization, just a couple alarming statistics. The World Health Organization had put out a study that said 844 million people across the planet are without access to basic, safe water sources. 844 million. That's, what, 14% of the world's population does not have access to basic, safe water source. It's hard for us here to see and understand that as we can go into any one of our rooms and turn on a faucet. 2 billion people around the planet use contaminated water sources. So approximately 30% of our population, their access to water is a contaminated water source. And contaminated drinking water causes approximately a little over 500,000 deaths per year. So there is a driving need for clean drinking water across this planet. OTEC, as I've mentioned, provides that baseload source. Seawater Air Conditioning plants as well can provide the desalinated water. Who are our customers? As I mentioned here. So our customers, people ask, who do you guys do business with? They're utilities, they're local governments, they're resorts, business districts. We'll kind of talk about some of the unique features, if you will, where our technology is viable. But those are our customers. Those are the people we are in contact with. Those are, as I mentioned, the 9 projects in our pipeline that we have are with those local governments, with these hotel chains, these resorts in tropical regions that are trying to get their hands around what are their costs going to look like in the next 20 years for air conditioning. How are we going to create drinking water for our residents if the freshwater aquifers dry up or are infiltrated by the salt water, which is currently happening in the American Samoa? These sort of things are, again, relative, and the conversations that really are created with our company. This is one business that our team has been involved with. We do not seek projects. We do not have a sales department that goes out and tries to create business opportunities. In turn, they seek out our company, our technologies. And when they look at our technology, our company is one of the leading companies, in part because of our business model. And we'll talk about that here in a second. Again, we have 9 projects in that pipeline. We have people reach out to us. I think 2 weeks ago we had someone reach out to us, and we, at this point, just can't take on any more projects, and that's a good problem for our business to have at this point. So OTEC 101, what is it? How does it work? As I mentioned, in essence, what we do is we harness the energy from the ocean. We use the ocean as a solar panel. 80% of the sun's solar energy is absorbed into the surface of the world's oceans and is replenished daily regardless of weather patterns. While the sun heats the surface ocean water, the ocean depths remain cold. A unique feature of this technology, as I mentioned, is the cold, melted glacial water that we draw from has to be about 1,000 meters down. So the warm surface water and the cold glacial water is what generates the delta T, or the temperature differential that is required for the technology. Along with sustainability, one OTEC plant can also create air conditioning. So in essence, the OTEC plant is an all-encompassing energy, air conditioning, and potable water. A seawater air conditioning plant is air conditioning and potable water. Let's see if our visual works here. All right. So this here illustrates a land-based plant. Most of the land-based plants would be 17 megawatts and below. The industry, looking in the future, is looking at floating OTEC plants. Our company, as well as some other companies we do work with, are looking at 100 megawatt floating OTEC plants. The illustration we have here is a land-based plant. So essentially how the technology works, as I mentioned, the warm water comes through the intake pipe. It is met with and heats, we use ammonia that has a low boiling point. So the warm water meets with ammonia. It heats the ammonia and creates steam. The steam is then pressurized and turns a turbine, which is what generates the electricity. As you can see here, I'll mention this in a second, the steam turns a turbine. The steam comes into the cold water pipe. The cold water, as I mentioned, we draw it from 1,000 meters down. That is a large expense of the plants, by the way, is to get these pipes 1,000 meters down to the ocean floor. The cold water meets the steam, turns it back into a liquid. The cold water is then essentially put back into the ocean through an outtake pipe down at the same depths of the ocean. This is called the Rankine cycle. It's a closed cycle that creates the 24/7, 365 electricity, air conditioning, and potable water. What's interesting about the water aspect is this is a variable funnel. We can, in the evenings when we don't need to generate as much electricity, we can funnel more water through to the desalination plant and create more potable water. During more or higher energy uses of the day, we can slow down the desalination plant and we can increase the output of the electricity. So again, this is a land-based plant. Some of the features of these plants, it has to be close to the shore. I mean, technically these plants can be inland. However, the cost, therefore, to get the piping to where the plant would need to be takes the economics out of the plan, and it doesn't make it as viable. So they do need to be land-based. They need to be close to the shore. And again, we need access to 1,000 meters down. So when we look at our target market, which I will go to now. When we look at our target market, we're looking at tropical and subtropical regions of the world. Those are the customers that we're talking to now. That's the area of the world that is desperately in need of the output that our technology creates. In our target market, the Caribbean is obviously a fantastic region for this technology. Southeast Asia is the prime and optimal location, the Philippines being one of those locations. Essentially because of the warm surface water and the access, which we do in terms of, it's called bathymetry mapping of the ocean floor to make sure that we can put this cold water pipe 1,000 meters down. So as long as we have access to some sort of shelf, that we don't need to go out 8 miles, again, the more pipe you lay, the more expensive the cost. As long as we have access to that shelf and we can get down to cold water, as long as we can find surface water and a good temperature for our technologies, around 83 degrees, that will give us the temperature differential between the warm and the cold for, again, the economics. The technology still works, but therefore the economics make sense for our customers to look at this as an alternative to what they're currently using. What are they currently using? Coal, oil, petroleum, different types of fossil fuel electricity sources, also that do not tie in potable water, again, being one of the main aspects to the technology. There are 70 countries, approximately 70 countries in our target market, so it is a large addressable market. OTE will never fulfill the needs of this market. We are not trying to fulfill the needs entirely of this market, but we are looking to bring this commercially from an OTEC standpoint, commercially to the world, because we know the effect and the impact that it can have on the residents, both by providing the energy and the water, but also from economic development. So again, that's mainly our target market. Is it viable in the United States? There are some areas in Florida and Southern California where we can utilize the technology. Again, our company doesn't look at much at those locations because of the economics and the competitive landscape. It doesn't make sense for us to compete with 9 cents a kilowatt for traditional heating and electricity that we have here. And therefore, again, that's the main target market that we work with. A little bit about our leadership team. As I mentioned, over the last couple of years, we've been investing in the company, building the technology and building our executive team. Our team is comprised of entrepreneurs and business executives that have made their career out of investing in intellectual property and building a sustainable business out of that technology. Jeremy Feekins, as I mentioned, is our CEO. We have our council. I would say 2 bits that are our special sauce is our engineers. Dr. Steve Oney was the United States' first subject matter expert on OTEC, and he represented the United States in international symposiums across the world. He has hands-on experience at the OTEC plant in Hawaii, which for engineers for this technology is very important because it's not just research done in a lab. There's hands-on experience with building one of these plants. And then similarly, C.B. Panchel, he is an expert on heat exchangers. So a large cost and a large portion of our plants is to make sure that these heat exchangers are sustainable and built in a way that we can create the energy at a cost that's efficient competitively for our customers. But again, that's what we've been developing. We have a team of executives, financiers, engineers, advisors, both in the private industry and marketplace as well as with government relationships, that essentially has built the team that we've created. Some of them are housed here in our Lancaster office. Some of them are in their own office, or as I mentioned, down in the Virginia and DC area. One way that we're looking to bring an OTEC plant to the commercial world is through, and this is an exciting venture that our CEO has been working on for several years, is to, the OTEC plant that's in Hawaii is a 0.5 megawatt. So what we're looking at creating in St. Croix, and we've already been approved by the Congress of the USVI for a 17 megawatt OTEC plant. We completed a 2.5-year feasibility study and presented our study to their Congress a little over a year ago. So what we're looking at now is in the island of St. Croix, we have land that we are looking at acquiring here very shortly to create a network. This will be the first of Otech powered eco villages. So the world needs to see that an OTEC plant is viable. So the way that we're looking to do that is to have an OTEC plant fulfill the needs of our eco village, of a local community, to provide the electricity, the air conditioning, and the potable water needs for that community. We are doing that, as I mentioned, through the form of Otech Eco Village. We've created our first master plan. All of our stakeholders are heading in February to discuss moving that project along. And again, OTE will manage and own the Otech plant. We have other partners that we're bringing in for the Eco Village side to manage the villas and the hotel and the resort side of things. But it will be a 100% fossil fuel free, as close as we can, community that is fully sustainable and fully driven off of the OTEC plant, the energy, air conditioning, and potable water. Must have skipped over the world-class partners, my apologies. Who do we work with? We're working with a lot of the well-known companies that you guys have seen. Holtec, they are large in heat exchangers. We are working with GE, Pipe Life. There's only 2 companies in the world that can create these pipes, these cold water pipes. And a lot of these partners that we are working with, again, we're project managers. So we're bringing in the best pipe layers. We're bringing in the best heat exchanger experts that we possibly can to generate. These are some of the partners that we're working with. 2 others I'll mention, Naval Energies. We just renewed our MOU with Naval Energies. They're kind of like the Lockheed Martin of France, large government contractor, about 40% owned by the French government. They're heavily invested in the OTEC technology and in the industry, and we're working with them as partners on one of our projects. Our owner's engineer, DCO Energy, is out of Mays Landing, New Jersey. They do about $250 million a year in gross revenues. They're just a large energy partner of ours that, again, are going to be our owner's engineers for our projects. I did talk a little bit about the Eco Village. Again, that's our strategy to bring OTEC to a commercial, scalable plant. Seawater Air Conditioning, again, there is no technology risk with that. They already exist, so we're building our project pipeline of that. The Eco Village is truly based around the OTEC and that technology. Who's our competition? Lockheed Martin. They are certainly a competitor in this industry. We are working with them on one of our projects, and they're actually a customer of ours, which I'll talk about on the next slide. The OTEC International, they're a small 2-person group that does a lot of research in OTEC, but they do not have hands-on experience. Mackay Ocean Engineering, they actually help manage the OTEC plant in Hawaii currently. They are experts on the cold water pipes as well. They're pipe engineers, and that's really, again, they're our subcontractor, as I mentioned. Bardot Engineering, another firm, and Naval Energies. As I mentioned with Naval Energies, they are our EPC, our engineering procurement contractor for the St. Croix project, the Otech Eco Village in St. Croix. So again, there are some players. The differentiator that we have, we are a build, own, and operate model. Right? These third world nations do not have the financing capabilities, the engineering expertise to manage the scale and the size of these plants. So some of the Lockheeds and Naval Energies, they want to build the technology. They don't necessarily want to manage a 20 or 30-year project in terms of the contracts that we sign. We look to sign 20 or 30-year contracts with our customers. We own the plant, we distribute the electricity or the air conditioning to the customer on a fixed cost that's agreed. So again, kind of the differentiator that we have, we certainly will utilize a lot of the large players, but our business model to get these technologies to the commercial world is really what has advanced us to the stage that we're at today. So what's our immediate next step? Our first two projects is for a seawater air conditioning system for the U.S. Navy in a naval base in the Indian Ocean. Our engineers actually last week were at a week-and-a-half long design charrette with our engineers, representatives from DCO Energy, as well as Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin and the Navy has allocated about $130 million in this year's fiscal budget for a seawater air conditioning plant for this naval base. Lockheed reached out to our engineering team in May of last year and sought Dr. Oni's expertise, specifically on this naval base. So that project, we expect a notice to proceed following this meeting that we just had at the naval base last week. So that's an exciting project. There are other projects that we work with, and we're expecting and hoping to come down the line with the U.S. Navy because they're looking at these similar energy savings agreements for many of their naval bases to overhaul their energy platform. The Otech Eco Village, the St. Croix projects. I mentioned that a little bit too. Again, that's moving forward in the end of February. Our stakeholders are getting together there. After that, I mentioned our project pipelines just to kind of give you an idea and an example for who else we are talking to and the other areas that we're working with. The government of Ghana has received our MOU in September of last year, and they're reviewing that. We're in discussions with them for a floating OTEC plant, again, kind of the next step for the technology. As well as the Philippines, we have approval from the mayor in Aroroy, Philippines, whereby he is going to assist us with the permitting and the licensing for 2 OTEC plants in the Philippines. Tremendous need in the Philippines, as I said, for clean water is one of the driving factors there, but also the affordable, sustainable energy. Outside of that, as I mentioned, we're at a point now where we're not looking at any more additional customers, but the Caribbean and Southeast Asia are really the 2 prime locations that we have sought out and that have sought us out for our technology. So kind of in summary, as Ryan had mentioned, there is a large transition, obviously, across the world with going to renewables and sustainable energy platforms. OTEC is not as advanced as solar. It is not as advanced as wind. I believe it's more competitive than there is wave energy and tidal energy, but they are not as broad in terms of their application. So OTEC as a technology is certainly given a lot of heightened attention. It is viable economically now over the last decade for 2 reasons. The cold water pipe and the advancements of the technology, ironically, in the oil industry from offshore oil rigs, the pipes that they've created to go down to the ocean floor. Our industry is now utilizing that piping technology to lower the cost and find better materials so that we can lay that cold water pipe more efficiently and more cost effectively. The second reason for its interest is primarily the volatility of oil. Over the last decade, we've seen oil at 130 plus a barrel. We've seen it down to $30 a barrel. It's 60, 65 a barrel currently. Most of our customers, where is it going to be in 10 years? What's it going to look like in 20 years? And for these partners and for these people to find an alternative resource, it's not the end-all be-all. It's not going to replace everything, but as a substitute to provide the energy and, again, the potable water, creates economic development and has garnered plenty of interest over the last 8 to 10 years. The large addressable market, we talked about that. The technology, the success of the R&D plant in Hawaii is tremendous for our technology. It's not something that's just done in the lab. There is a plant that's been there since the mid-90s where a lot of the OTEC research has been done. I encourage you to go to the Natural Energy Laboratory of Hawaii. It's called NELHA. And you can see some of the research that they've done on OTEC. Our Otech Eco Village will prove OTEC at a commercial scale. and that communities can live and prosper in a sustainable way without fossil fuels. Again, a large impact side of our mission. The two projects that we have close to pipeline that I just discussed, and again, the team that we've established and that we've put together over the last 6 years has really gotten us to the point that where we are today. At this time, I will open it up to any questions, thoughts, concerns that you guys may have.